So in this video, I want to show you what usually happens after the initial coding. So this is part 2 of the series I'm recording. If you haven't watched the first one, go and watch it now, because in the first one I was doing the initial coding, which is the first stage of coding. What follows is what I'll be doing now in this video. And after this, in the third video in the series, I'll show you how to turn this, what we're doing today, into themes. And just as I explained in the first video, this data set that I'm using comes from a self-study course, my self-study course From Zero to NVivo, a course in which I instruct you on how to do research, how to analyze your data with NVivo. So check the links under the video. If the course has been published, you'll find the link there. So now let's get to our coding. So again, in the first video we did initial coding. What I did next, I organized my codes into different folders. So you can see I created this initial coding folder. This is where I dumped all the initial codes because I like to have a sort of a backup for my code. So that's what I did, and then I copied and pasted the same codes into this focus codes folder, and this is where I'll be now changing them. So several reasons for which I may decide to do what I did, so to have this kind of a backup. I've explained it many times in my previous videos, but in short, one of these reasons is purely individual or personal or psychological even. Namely, I just don't want to be stressed about making a mistake. So if I delete a code, if I rename a code, if I merge it, join it with something else, I want to know that there is always something I can do if I regret that decision. So I have this backup and this original folder where I keep my code. So that's the first reason. The second reason is more, let's say, academic and formal. Namely, you can describe, so what I did here can be referred to as keeping an audit trail. Keeping an audit trail, which is basically keeping a documentation of your analytic steps, of your research steps in general, which means that in theory, if somebody asked me, for example, to provide evidence that my themes that I will later develop in fact originated from codes, I can always point them to this and I can show them, look, here is my original coding. So that's kind of an evidence. And finally, another reason is that if you're writing, if at some point you will be writing your research design or methodology chapter, in that chapter you will want to demonstrate what you did and ideally show as many examples as possible. So again, you may go back to your original initial codes and may use some examples and show in the chapter, here's what happened, here is what my coding used to be, and here is what it became. So it's just good to have this, to be able to have a trace of all of everything that you did. So in short, these are the reasons why I created these folders. And now I'll be working on my focus codes. So focus codes, what are they and what happens here? So basically at some point you're likely, as you're coding, as you're doing the initial coding, if you're being detailed enough, and as you know, I encourage you to be detailed. This means, however, in practice that at some point it may start to become quite overwhelming, just keeping track of all your codes. You can see that I have 100 codes here. And believe me, this one was just created for the purpose of this presentation, which means the dataset is quite simple, quite basic. You saw these interviews, they were extracted from online interviews. So it's not a very in-depth data, to be honest, and still I managed to get to 100 codes. So it will become overwhelming at some point, and it's just almost a natural instinct, if you like, to want to organize these codes somehow, to put them in some kind of groups, just to make sense of what you have, because otherwise what starts to happen as well is that you start to code the same things with different codes. So you start to select pieces of text and create codes for them, and only then realize that you have a very similar code already. So if it does happen, don't worry, it's inevitable, and we'll be getting rid of these duplicates at this particular stage. But whilst this is a natural thing, at the same time it may start to become, like I said, annoying and overwhelming, at which point you may feel like you're not up to date with with your own codes and you want to organize them, that's when you may decide to move on to this second stage. So that's to answer a question of when this happens. So when does this second stage take place? When is this focus coding, whatever it is, when does this need to happen? And there is no single response to this. So basically, this may happen at the very end, after you're done with all your interview transcripts. So that's perfectly fine. If you feel confident and comfortable doing that, you can code all your transcripts with these initial codes, and then only then decide to move on to stage 2. So organize these codes, and after that, work on developing your themes, and that's perfectly fine. However, you may also decide to move on to this stage much sooner. So you may decide, for example, to move on to this stage after 3 or 4 or 5 transcripts have been coded, because you feel, as I said, that it's getting out of hand. You can't control these codes. It's just too many. It's overwhelming. You want to have some sort of grouping, some sort of organization in your coding framework, and that's what this stage is essentially about. So you may also do it at that stage. So that's the question of when to do this. Really is the answer is up to you. And if you do it after, not at the end, but rather after 3 or 4 or 5 transcripts, that's exactly by definition what focus coding is, because then it becomes more focused. Your codes are becoming more focused because you organize them, sometimes rename them, sometimes combine several codes. So usually what happens is that you're reducing the number of codes as well to some extent at this stage, and then you continue to code, and it's more focused. It's focus coding, hence the name. But like I said, it may happen also after you're done your initial coding for all your transcripts. So it's up to you. So now let's look at our codes again, and this is what we see. So like I said, I just want to organize them into any kind of groups, as I explained in this video, where I explained the whole process in 5 or so minutes. I explained that this grouping is just any common sense grouping. I compare it to cleaning the room, where you're just moving things on different piles. You don't have to worry about the themes just yet. So no pressure at all. Don't worry about the themes just yet. Any groups, if you have lots of codes about background information, for example, for your participants, and this happens a lot, I usually create a group called background information and just throw all my codes that have to do with like work experience, education, any factual information, I just throw it there. If I had a lot of codes about describing emotions, I may decide, okay, let's just move all these emotions into one group, because otherwise they are just spread across my coding framework. So it's a really subjective personal judgment what kind of groups you're creating at this stage. Very often, and this is what I'll start with now, what happens is that I simply create, or at least start with creating 2 general groups, good things and bad things. For example, if you're, let's say, exploring people's views on online education or remote education, you may start to notice that there are mixed codes. Some of them are good things, some of them are bad things, and very often this is my starting point. And sometimes that's it. That's everything I want to do, and this is in fact what I'll do in this dataset of ours, because I know it's basically about good and bad things. That's all I could get from these interviews. You can see here that he doesn't like to be a star, one of the codes you may remember we created. So it's a bad thing, but then fascination about acting is a good thing. But the problem is that they're all mixed up. So it's just going to be easier to look at them if we have these 2 general groups. So that's what we'll do now. So good things. Again, I'm not worried about the names of these groups at all. Good things and bad things. You can call them challenges, barriers, benefits, advantages, anything, or just anything that makes sense to you. Again, just like I said in the first video. So now what we'll do, I'll just start throwing anything that's positive and anything that's negative into the respective categories. So in NVivo, if you're using this software, you can just move it and drag it, of course, but like I said, this is not an instructional video on NVivo. If you're not using this software, you'll be likely to be doing this same or similar sort of thing, except that not in NVivo, even if you're doing it manually. So strong personality is a good thing. Being able to take criticism on board is a good thing. The environment that should be challenging you is a good thing. Lots of good things, to be honest. So that's what I'll be doing now for the next couple minutes, I'll be just deciding which ones are going into which groups, and then I'll show you what happens next. So this is what we have at the moment. You can see that I managed to move most of my codes into either good things or bad things categories. There are some that I still haven't decided. So there are also some that I mentioned, let's say background information. I'll just keep it for now, but I really don't think I'll need it later. In some studies, I end up using this kind of information. Here I know it's probably not going to be that valuable to me, but early years, how his passion started, growing up, I think that's about it. And now we also have several codes. So that's so this stage, in a second, we'll be cleaning up these within these groups. But what I want to do first is to decide what to do with these. Sometimes I may just move them on to the next stage when I develop themes, that's fine. But if I can get rid of some of these, I will. So the most fun things, it's not a good code. It's by my own standards, it's not a good code because it just says the most fun things. And now, as I explained in the first video, now I actually have to go and read what these things were. Ideally, I want these codes to be telling me what is underneath or what's inside. This one is obviously a mistake, but let's see what it says here. So this one is about danger. We know we have codes about danger. We'll have to clean this up soon because we probably have more than one, but it's about taking risks. That's what he says. I'll just make sure before I delete this code, because that's my goal, I want to delete this most fun things code. I'll just make sure that I code whatever's underneath. So taking risks for this one. And this one is, let's see, just growing up. Fascination, that's what he's talking about. Fascination. I think I have a code about fascination somewhere. If you're using software and in Vivo, you can just type it here, and there you are. So we know that it's here. Fascination about acting. I'll code it as such. And now I can delete the most fun things code because it's just, I don't like the name of it. Like I said, it's not really getting me any closer to remembering what my data is about. Mental and physical danger, it was mentioned as a good thing. So good to work with like-minded people, it's a good thing. Differences between bigger and smaller movies. Again, what are the differences? I now have to go and see what these differences are. Too many people involved. Smaller sets are making you less nervous, more autonomy. I think I have it somewhere, either control, autonomy and control. Yeah, that's what it's called. And then many people, do I have not good when too many people involved. I'll just make sure that I coded it. And again, I'm getting rid of this general code, so this vague name, differences between bigger and smaller sets. So now I'm left with two categories, good things and bad things, and that's what we need to sort out now. So within each of these, I just basically have to go and make sure it's not too messy. And what I mean by this, by not being too messy, is mainly not to have too many of these duplicates that I mentioned, like enjoying danger. I'm just gonna take it, so in NVivo you can merge it. I'm gonna take it and merge it into taking risks. So taking risks, and here we are. Or actually, before I do, I want to explore this and see, is it about which one is which? One may be about enjoying the danger, so like a personal thing, I like the danger. And one may be about the movie set or the work set, you know, the work environment that provides that risk. So let's just see. This one says, well, this one is about the movie set providing these opportunities to take risks. So actually, I want a new code now, just to make sure, because maybe you will want to distinguish between that. So it may be personal, it may be, you know, something that has to do with the work itself. So the work environment providing opportunity to take risks. Just in case, like I said, I want to, sometimes, as I said, the point is to reduce the number of codes, but it's also to clean it up, to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So risks are important. This one is also about the movie set. Risks are important. I had to drive a car. Okay, actually, yeah. So I just used the same one. So it's all about the movie sets, actually. So I'll delete taking risks. I'll just basically ended up renaming it. So I have the movie set or the work environment providing the opportunity to take risks. Separating work and personal life. I want to look into this. Okay, so it's not influencing me and all this. Okay, so it's being able to separate. Challenging yourself and taking risks. Okay, so is that, this one is about the personal stuff. So you're looking for risk. Okay, so I'll probably keep it as it is now. Attention to detail. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just working down that list and just making my way down that list and trying to understand which one is which. Can I delete anything, rename anything, or combine two or more together? I know there will be more as I move down the list. So making it personal, using your personal experiences. What is this one about? So, okay, well, it's about, yeah, personal connection. The reason I'm doing this, having a personal connection, is because I already think I remember I have something that I could later merge into this. So you have to train well. Learning and training. Again, we want to see, is it, at the moment I'm already thinking ahead and I'm wondering if there will be a distinction between factors. Remember, we're talking about, in this hypothetical study, about factors that may potentially influence our job retention. So whether we want to leave or stay on the job. I'm already starting to think that there may be two different groups, such as the actual work set, the environment, and our personal preferences. So here it's about training. So you have to train well. Yeah, personal preference, learning and training. Let's see if this one is about the environment or, you know, your willingness to learn and train. So let's see. This is about this personal. Again, this personal, you have to train well. So I'll make sure that this is also coded as you have to train well, but it's also about the work providing training. So let's see. This is about personal again. You have to, which one is it? You have to train. And this one is also about this personal. So to be honest, I think only the first two are about the work providing opportunity to learn. So what I'll do, I'll uncode these extracts. Learning and training is good. I'll uncode these, and then now I have to find them, and I think I want to rename them. Not learning and training is good, but work providing learning and training opportunities. So I hope you see what I'm doing and what I mean by these two categories that I think I see here. It's either about what you do and your qualities that possibly influence how you essentially feel about your work, whether you're happy, and what the job itself does. So you have to train well, challenging yourselves and taking risks again. You're looking for risk. Okay, it's good. You have to have attention to detail, personal relationship with work, personal connection. See, these are exactly the same thing. So having a personal connection, you have to have a personal relationship with work. So I'll combine them, merge, and we have one instead of two. Always try to develop and make progress. This one is about you have to train well. Well, let me rename it. So I'll combine it first. Willing to learn and develop yourself constantly. That's what it is. So it's just becoming, so I made it a little bit broader, I would say, but that's because I'm trying to reduce this number. As you can see, there are lots of these codes. Attention to detail, personal relationship, appeal to emotions. The job needs to appeal to emotions. Perhaps it will be the same thing as this personal relationship. Strong personality, being able to take criticism on board, the environment that's challenging yourself and taking risks. This is different. This one is about the environment. Being able to take challenges, to turn challenges into advantages. I think that's what I meant. Always wants to develop. So again, we can move it into willing to learn and develop yourself constantly. So we're just combining the code. We don't want to just remove it, because if we remove it, the quote will be gone. But now I'm combining it into this code. So if I open this, that's the whole point of using software. You can see all the quotes where I decided that this is what I'll code it as. Okay, so appreciating little things, being an optimist, passion from childhood helps her cook. So, well, being passionate, we have it right here. So being passionate, I'm not sure if it's about the work or yourself, but we're not wondering and worrying too much about it just yet. So being passionate is what we'll have for now, and later we'll see if we can do anything else with it. So you have to be persistent, believe in yourself, strong personality. Let's just keep all of them together. Merge. Sometimes I may rename it being strong and resilient and persistent, just in case, so that I can throw several different things in there. Put in hard work, dynamic job, always something to learn. So the work providing no, it's not this one. There was one about the work providing opportunities to learn. So that's what I'll call it for now, providing opportunities to learn. We also have one about being willing to learn and develop, but this one is about the work. Constantly developing, again, let's just double check if it's about your personal. They need to fight, they need to develop. Okay, so this is about being willing to learn and develop. So again, we're doing this, being able to relate to the character. This one is about personal relationship with work to me. I want to merge it. You have to have personal relationship. Also because this one is about relating to character, it's clearly about acting, and I want to make it a little bit more, I would say, generic, and so that I can refer it to both, acting and chefing, and possibly other jobs if that was my real study of work retention. So not just about acting. So you have to have personal connection. That's what I wanted to be merged into. Passion, relate to the character. Again, same. You have to have a personal relationship. Same thing. Playing meaningful characters. Well, what I'll do is the work being meaningful, but perhaps I'll make it later into, again, personal relation. I'm not sure. Always doing something new, not being stale. Same thing. Cut. Being willing to develop. But actually, again, I'll see if it's about yourself or the work. The funny thing about acting is that you always learn something new. So it's basically about the work providing opportunities to learn and try new things. That's what I'll do. So I'll merge this one into this one. The work being meaningful, smaller independent films are better. Why are they better? We want to know. it's harder to get it off the ground for this. That's what he says, and I think I have this code in the challenges group, so I'll just delete it. Meaningful, doing something meaningful, the work being meaningful, and not just for money. So I wonder if it's also about that passion. That's what life is about. I'm doing it for my children, grandchildren, definitely being passionate. Okay. This is about being meaningful. So the work being meaningful, doing something meaningful. Where do we have it? Not just for money. So the work being meaningful. Far locations are good. So this was more about dynamic environment. Dynamic environment, and let's see, challenging yourself. The work providing opportunities to learn and try new things. That's what I'll do. So it's good to leave the studio. Far locations are good. I'll take these two, and it will be just about opportunities to learn, try new things. And you know what I'll do? Dynamic work, providing opportunities. So it will be about dynamic. So it's not stale. You travel, you try new things. So again, sometimes it's just a matter of deciding. Does it make sense to put these two together? So like extreme things is going to be about willing to take risks. Where is this one? Challenging yourself, taking risks, that's for sure. You have to try to improve, so develop yourself. Again, we have it right here. Develop yourself. There's always something new. It's not boring. So the work being dynamic. So again, you can see how we're reducing this number. We only have, well, probably about 30 or 40 now, and we have many more in this group. So you know what I'll do now? I'll just keep working on this, and then I'll show you what happens when I'm done. So I'll just keep merging and moving things around, and then I'll show you how I get on. So this is just to show you more or less what I have at this point. I don't want to make this video too long, but I hope that you get the point of what's happening. This is more or less what I have. I don't have to worry about getting it 100% right, because it's not the point. Like I said, if I had more interviews now, transcripts, I would continue to code them with this group of codes, which is, as you can see, just much more manageable, because the number is manageable. I can see all of them, and then I will do the same thing for the bad things. I haven't done them yet, but it's just not as many here. But you can see clearly that it's just easier to handle now this number, easier to remember what I have as I encounter something new in the interview that I want to code, because I've just spent this time working on this, so I'm more conscious of what I actually have here. So this is the main point of this stage of coding, just to organize things better and be able to know what you have, because eventually from this understanding, what emerges, what will happen is that we want to develop themes. So we have to understand our data very well, and these codes are our table of contents, or our window into understanding our data well. So regardless of how many groups of codes you created at this stage, the point is to try to more or less find a place for most of the codes in one group or another, and then clean up within the groups. Again, this is just to be able to manage things better, to understand your codes and your data. And then after this, you are ready to start thinking about the themes. If that's if you've coded all your interview transcripts, that is. If you still have some transcripts to code, that's when you go and continue to code, and then move on to developing themes when you're finished.